Hey, I want to apologize in advance today. This video is going to be a little bit rambly, probably a little long-winded, and maybe incoherent at times because I made the mistake of watching the news this morning, got myself all worked up, and I wanted to come out here and make a little bit of a rant video. I think most of you have already heard about the black woman, I believe it's in Texas, who was shot in her home by police officers while committing no crime and actually murdered right there, not only in her own home, but in her own bedroom by law enforcement officers. Now, a lot of people are like, well, you're portraying that pretty dark and pretty negatively on the police. Well, there's no other way to portray it. A neighbor called in for a wellness check for an elderly neighbor. On a wellness check, police officers decided to roll up with, I got to defend myself because this is them against us mentality. So they end up shooting someone who's in her own home, in her own bedroom, and the only crime is she didn't get the door shut all the way when she came home. And I want to talk today a little bit about some of the lessons this teaches us. Especially want to talk to those people out there that police are on our side. When it comes down to tough times, they'll be the ones that stand up to the government and protect us. I want to tell you how full of shit you are and how this kind of illustrates it. First off, for people who don't really know all the details of this thing, like I said, neighbor called in a wellness check. Police roll up on a wellness check, basically weapons drawn, and shoot the first person they see in the home from outside. There's no defending that. He stood up in the window, said, put your hands up, and then bang, bang. Or actually just bang. He only fired one time. But just immediately, put your hands up, bang. This woman wasn't doing anything. And of course, she's not going to comply with orders. Someone just screamed something from outside her house to her. She doesn't even know what's going on. And a small child was there with her when it happened. But that's not what I'm talking about. Now, the guy that did this police officer, who was in no danger, because he could have simply just went, oh, she didn't put her hands up, I'm going to get back out of the window. Until he knew what was going on, he resigned. And what really got me angry today, and like I said, this is incoherent and rambly, the police department chief, the captain, was on TV going, oh, if he hadn't resigned this morning, I was going to fire him today. I was so going to fire him for not de-escalating and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, because that's what you always do. You always fire him. We know that almost never happens. Very seldom. They're allowed to resign because if they resign and then once the internal investigation gets smashed down and nothing ever happens, they just move to another police department. I've seen that so many times I can't even count it. Couldn't even begin to count it. And everybody knows that old trick. So I don't know who you think you're fooling. Like, I was going to fire him. You weren't going to fire him. Bullshit. You might have after an investigation if the public kept enough pressure on you that they kept watching and you saw that you couldn't just make it disappear. But you weren't going to fire him that day. That's just a bunch of garbage. And I'm hoping that there will be enough public attention on this case that you will have to prosecute this guy, not just let him resign, so that he can't just move to another law enforcement division. So that being said, I want to get to what was actually shown to us as civilians by this incident. When he showed up, decided he was going to shoot the first person he saw in that house. And I'm not saying he went there thinking, I'm going to shoot the first person I'm seeing. But the first time he saw someone, his first action was to shoot. That shows you something. That shows you that law enforcement these days, they operate by a code of take no risk. Shoot first, ask questions later. It's us against them. If we lose a few innocent civilians along the way, it's worth it as long as we don't lose any police officers. Innocent civilian life is worth less than the life of a police officer. They shouldn't have to take that risk. Even though the civilian is not the one that signed up for the risk. The police officer is. He signed up for a job where he makes way more money than he should with his education level. Most people with the same education level as police officers make half or less than half what they make and get none of the benefits they get. Even though they signed up for that job, knowing there were risks, they no longer want to take those risks. They would rather sacrifice civilians. So that shows you that modern law enforcement has an us against them mentality. Now, I've always thought that, It's a little bit better in sheriff's departments, and it is. It's a little better in sheriff's departments, but in these big agencies, these where the leadership is appointed, not elected, it is very much us against them, and they will be very much protect the system when it comes down to it. They are not on our side. They are on their own side and the system that butters their bread. And like I said, I used to say it was better in sheriff's departments, and it is, but it ain't that much better. I've been talking to a lot of deputies lately, and it ain't that much better. I think if you've watched some of my chats where I brought on some really pro-Second Amendment police officers, at the end of the day, when we got right down to it, I was like, well, if they pass these red flag laws and they tell you go into a house, take someone's gun, are you going to do it? Well, of course I'm going to. I'm not going to throw away my pension, my benefits, my pay, etc. Over one family or one person. So that tells you all you need to know right there. Their job is more important to them than your rights as an individual. And every time they go to take someone's gun, it's just going to be an individual. It's one individual at a time. So they'll use that same justification every time. So this whole police officer just shooting her, just put your hands up, bang. That whole mentality, that whole action there shows you not taking any risk, even though he wasn't really in any danger. He's been programmed to think she was worth less than he was. Even though she was doing nothing wrong, he was doing everything wrong. But that's not even the main issue I'm taking with what happened. And I know you've listened to a lot here, but I'm finally getting to the part that really riled me up and I think should really tell gun owners something about law enforcement. What did they do when they immediately went into covering their asses mode when they started doing the investigation inside the house after she was shot and killed? They located a firearm in the home that in no way have they portrayed as being illegally owned or even being on her or near her at the time. They located a firearm, took pictures, made sure the press knew there was a firearm in the home. Oh, this person was probably a firearm owner. Since they owned firearms, the police were probably justified in shooting her. That should show you what police think of civilians that own firearms. They're a bigger threat than anybody. They're the big threat. Because they thought, if we can just let the press know and let the public know she had a gun, then the heat will be off us. So how do you think they're going to act later when there's actually danger to them from people who own guns? People who legally own guns right now present almost zero risk to police officers. And they know that, but they'll still, first thing they did, they owned a gun. Therefore, they were okay to take out because they owned a gun. That's what they were trying to do with that. That was covering their own ass. That was trying to sway public opinion in their favor, that it was okay that they shot this person, or likely okay because they had a gun. Not even if it was on them, just the fact that they owned one. So what does that tell you about how they feel about civilian gun ownership? Now, I know you think, well, yeah, but she was a black person with a gun. I'm a white middle-class male. They're never going to turn on me. They don't give a shit. If they see you as a threat, they don't care if you're purple, black, pink, white, whatever. You're just an individual with a firearm who is now a threat. And like I said, it's us against them. Sit in one of their fucking call meetings in the morning and listen to the fucking it's us against them mentality. I've heard it too many times. Sat in that room too many times and been told, this is the safe place and out there you're fighting the enemy. Ain't no fucking enemy for police officers. It's not a war. They're there to just enforce the law, bring in people that have broken the law. They're not there to wage war on criminals. That's what our justice system is for. So, and that's what our SWAT teams are for, and our National Guard is for, etc. If it gets to the point where we need to wage war on the drug dealers, then that's what the National Guard is for. So, and let's not forget that that's a situation we've created ourselves anyway, just to justify more police officers. Seems like crime keeps going down, 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 like in the FBI statistics now, but we keep saying, we need more police, we need more police, we need to be able to maintain more control, we need to be able to maintain more order. And it's amazing how many pro-gun people are okay with that. So I'm hoping you'll take a look at this one situation and you'll see. Police officer, even though he was at minimal, if any risk, decided that her life was worth less than his. And once they were trying to cover for one another, before it exploded and got to be national news, and they had to stand up there and go, I would have fired him if he hadn't resigned. Bullshit. They started trying to cover their own asses just by saying she had a gun. So If you think they're on your side, I don't know what you are. Maybe you're stuck in the past. Maybe you know some old school police officers and you think that they're the actual example of what police departments are like nowadays. They're not. So you're either completely naive or you're ignorant. And worst off, maybe you're willfully ignorant because you've never faced any type of discrimination or any type of being targeted. But it's time for you to open your eyes and realize these massive law enforcement agencies and these militarized police forces, they're not there to protect us. They're not there to defend us. They're there to control us and to put us down when they need to.